What's up, everybody? Welcome to our first episode of Ball Related. I'm Myron Metcalf, senior college basketball reporter for ESPN, joined by Jeff Borzello, who covers college basketball and recruiting for ESPN and ESPN.com, and Jonathan Gavoni, who covers the NBA draft for ESPN and ESPN.com. Fellas, there is a lot of chatter around the one and only Bronny James. I'll start with this. So I was in the building when Michael Jordan watched Jeffrey Jordan at a game at Illinois years and years ago. And he showed up with his security team, and he was sitting in a section. They roped it off. So you couldn't go up or down the stairs. You were locked in because Jordan was there. It was a whole scene. There was just so much attached to it. And Jeffrey Jordan was not Bronny James, right? He was a walk-on in Illinois, didn't play a lot. I've been at a game when LeBron James was in the building at Virginia, the famous Zion Williamson block on DeAndre Hunter. And we were all kind of watching the game, but we were also watching LeBron James. It was its own show. Gavoni, there's nothing like this. There's nothing to compare this to, where Bronny James could end up and what that could be like for whatever school decides to take that on. How wild is that going to be? And how much do you think a coach, a school has to think about what would come with taking on a guy like Bronny James?
I think that if you are confident in your position and you feel like you are secure in your standing, I think you take Bronny James all day because he's a great basketball player. He's tough as nails. He's a tremendous defender. He's a very unselfish player. He's got an outstanding basketball IQ. The guy is an absolute winner. He's going to help you win games. And everything I've seen of him indicates that he plays with no ego. You would never guess that he is the son of arguably the best player of all time. So I would have no concerns at all, honestly, because I feel like he's going to find his way onto the floor and he's going to impact winning. And that's what you want. And he brings a lot on top of that too. I mean, all that attention, all the jersey sales, whatever, that's attractive also, So yeah, if you are, on the verge of being fired and, you were bringing back a team of 23 and 24-year-olds and you're not sure that you have minutes for Bronny, then yeah, don't take him. But if you, if you like his game, which I absolutely do, then I have zero concerns about Bronny as a basketball player.
He's also not going to come in expecting to be the best player on the team. I don't know if he's ever been the best player on his team on either AAU or high school in the last, 3 or 4 years. So he's not going to come in with any sort of baggage, with any sort of expectations of okay, I'm going to come in and play 38 minutes and score 20 points a game. He's going to come in and say, all right, I'll be happy being the third or fourth guy. I'll run the team. I'll defend. I'll play in transition. I'll move the ball. I'm not going to come in and take 15 shots from day one. He's never been like that. And I don't see why that would change at the college level. Like Gavoni, I love his game too. I just think I just like the way he plays. He's a winning player. He makes winning plays. The little things he does contributes or theoretically contributes to winning, and just in terms of being, it's odd to say he's obviously he's LeBron's son, but he's just kind of the ultimate glue guy to me. And I just think that's the role he would play in college. Also, I don't know, people say, okay, you got to take XYZ on if you take Bronny. I'm just not sure I agree with that. I mean, LeBron's not going to be at every game. He has he has his own job. And so I just don't know if the downside that people talk about is really there with him.
Jeff, I think every coach in this position who's looking at Bronny, who has a realistic chance, they're going to say, listen, man, he'll be a part of my team, and I'll use him the way I would use anyone. You got to earn your minutes. You got to earn your spot in the rotation, and we'll go from there. I always wonder how real that is, though, because although I don't think LeBron has been sort of this hands-on, I'm going to tell you how to play my son. And obviously saw that in the last couple of years. Bronny hasn't been the star for his high school team. He's had to work his way into this position. But what kind of pressure do you think might come with that if you're that head coach who has now been charged with shaping and molding Bronny James, who everyone knows wants to go to the next level and play with his dad in his final years in the NBA?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be in the background. If you're a coach who does not have a long contract or is not secure in their position, you might have that in the back of your head saying, I know LeBron's not going to be there, but at the same time, he's watching, Nike's watching, all these people are watching that are going to have, their input. But, look at the schools that have kind of been associated or linked to Bronny at different points. It's Juwan Howard. He's not going anywhere. If he went anywhere, it's the NBA. Dana Altman, he's been around forever. If he hates what's going on, he'll retire. I mean, like these guys, Penny Hardaway, he's not going anywhere. Chris Holtman, I don't know how much Ohio State's still involved with the recruiting class they have, but these guys that have been linked to him are pretty comfortable in their positions. I don't think they're going to, really be concerned or at least that concerned with, do I take Bronny? And if I take Bronny, is LeBron going to be saying, okay, he needs to play more, this and that? Is he going to be tweeting that his son needs, like, I just don't see any of that really happening. I mean, his first year or so at Sierra Canyon, he was playing with guys like BJ Boston, Zaire Williams. He wasn't the go-to guy. He wasn't the starting point guard. He was coming off the bench, and there was never really any.
LeBron was at every game, and
there was never any issue with it or any public, perception was there was no any issue with it. And like I said, these guys that the head coaches Howard and Hardaway and Dana Altman, whoever else, they're very comfortable in their position. They're not going to be under any heat if Bronny doesn't play.
Gavoni,
and again, he's going to play too. He's good enough to play from day one.
Yeah, and I want to get to that in a little bit about just sort of his ceiling. But Gavoni, obviously, this is a guy who we all know is really good, but there's still some steps to go to be a pro if the goal is to really get to the next level and have a chance to be on a team and be in an NBA rotation. If you're Bronny James, Gavoni, what are you looking for in a school and a coach as you think about what you're going to have to do to get to the next level?
I want to go somewhere where I'm not the best player on the team, where I can play a Drew Holiday, Marcus Smart type role. Just be the glue guy, because his game is not built to be the best player on your team. He's only 6'2.5". He's not the most explosive guy off the dribble. He's not the strongest player around, and so he's really not like a shot creator. I see him in the NBA kind of playing like an Avery Bradley type role. 3-and-D, make the right play, just fill your role, do the little things, and hopefully make a long career in the NBA off that. I'm not sure that he's one and done, honestly. Like I honestly think that he should take his time and enjoy his college experience, and win as many games as possible. I think that's the big key for him, is going somewhere where, because we've watched him against elite competition, and he's not a guy that carries you, like against AZ Compass Prep a couple of weeks ago in the top flight invite. He really struggled, man. He had a hard time bringing the ball up, and they were trapping him and they were giving him a lot of problems. I don't think he scored a point in the first half, and they got blown out. So I think that where he's ranked, 34th, 35th, that's a realistic indication of his talent level. Those guys usually aren't one and done. So hopefully, he comes in with the right mindset, which I think he will, and just, unpack his bags and have a great college experience and try to make the Final Four. And after 2 or 3 years in college basketball, then you try and go as a first round pick, not because you're LeBron James's son and, he wants to play with you. And I think all that stuff is just noise, honestly.
If LeBron's retirement wasn't looming, I don't even think we would be having anything close to a one-and-done conversation with him. I think that's kind of the elephant in the room, is that if LeBron is retiring at some point in the next few years, the theory is he wants to play for a year with his son. And if that was not in the background of all this, this one and done conversation with Bronny wouldn't even be happening.
And that's fair. And I think, Gavoni, you brought up a good point. And I think Bronny James deserves credit for just the young man he's become in all of this. I can't imagine what it's like. I was at a tournament in Dallas, Thanksgiving tournament a couple of years back. He was there. And I remember this group of girls, they run up to Bronny James, man, and they're just, they're going to take selfies and they're going to do what kids
It's like
do.
watching the Beatles. It's unbelievable.
It's wild.
The crowd that he draws and the attention that he gets and the way that he handles it is unbelievable. And really, it speaks to the kind of dad that LeBron is, to raise his son that way. Because I think about it every day. What is my son going to be like, when he's 17,
we all have the same. Yeah, you can't even imagine like to be in that position. But, so he's there. But like the security team blocks these girls from doing what like kids would do in that situation. So there's also a part of me that's like, I wonder if this is a kid too who wants to have the college experience, who wants to get on a campus and be as normal as you can be. That said, Jeff, it feels like we're down to a few schools that might have a realistic chance to get Bronny James. You mentioned them. We've heard Michigan and Juwan Howard. We've heard Oregon and Dana Altman. We've heard Chris Holtmann and Ohio State, Penny and Memphis. I think the Nike affiliation, maybe that plays a role. He just signed this NIL deal. Where do you think he's headed? I mean, what do you think he's thinking in terms of listing and ranking those schools that all want him at this point?
Well, that's the other thing is that, everyone keeps asking about, where's Bronny going? What's the latest on Bronny's recruitment? He doesn't seem to be all that, in a rush to make a decision or all that interested in even talking about. Like, he doesn't do interviews. He doesn't do public interviews, at least. I mean, maybe he talks to other people, on the side. Like, he's not one to, tweet out an offer or tweet out a visit or anything like that. Obviously everyone saw the picture of him on the sideline of the Ohio State game. Outside of that, it's kind of vague as to what's going on with his recruitment. There's a lot of buzz coming out of the summer that Oregon might be the leader for him. They got Mookie Cook, who he's tight with, and I think he played on the summer circuit with. Obviously, the Nike affiliation doesn't hurt there. And so, but lately you've heard some Michigan and things like that. Ohio State, as I mentioned, they have a few perimeter players in the class. And so I don't know if Bronny is, still a priority for them. But again, he could have a list of schools that, we don't even know about. Again, it hasn't been a public recruitment. And that goes to what you guys were just talking about in terms of he kind of keeps it to himself. He's not somebody that's out there flaunting that he's LeBron's son and wants all this attention. He just kind of goes about his business.
Gavaldi, what's the commentary about him at the next level? Like, what do guys like about Bronny James? What are their concerns?
Yeah, I mean, they like the shooting. He can come off screens. He's, really improved that part of his game. He's got deep range on it. He's really starting to experiment with, deep pull-up threes, which is interesting. So he can play off the ball some too, which is interesting. They like his defense, he's a really intense, really smart, really committed defender. And he I've seen his teams lose a lot of games, honestly, but he never, like, the energy never stops with him, which is great. And he also plays this really unselfish, really intelligent style of basketball where, you can see that he grew up around the game and he's comfortable in his own skin and he doesn't try to do too much. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play with better players, because that's the one thing we haven't been able to do. Strive for greatness. They've always this really dysfunctional EYBL team, guys coming and going, and never really had very much talent around him. Sierra Canyon, not a lot of talent on their squad this year, not a lot of talent on their squad last year, and in terms of winning games and being like, you expect them to be able to compete with like a Montverde or an IMG or a Sunrise, and no chance. Like, they're not even close to that. But it's probably given Bronny a chance to kind of expand his game, play more point guard, something that is also kind of new for him. And, just get more reps out of pick and roll. I mean, that's not his strength right now. It's not what he, you see that, when he's faced with athletes, he struggles. He's not a great finisher. I think he shot like 40% for two inside the arc in EYBL, even though a lot of those games came, in that constellation bracket, which was kind of created for Strive for Greatness, just to get them to the Peach Jam, because they were so bad before that. They needed to create a whole new thing for them. So I think people like his game. I don't know that you have to kind of separate him from his dad, because he's obviously such a different player. It's such a different, physical profile. He's not 6'8", he's not 260 pounds. He's not one of the best athletes of all time to play any sport. But I think, like I said, I think he's got a great future ahead of him.
You could tell he studies the game too. I mean, he doesn't just kind of go around assuming that being LeBron's son is going to kind of carry him in the basketball world. I mean, to me, his basketball IQ is really high. I think he's a good decision maker. You could tell that he watches basketball, that he studies the game, that he knows how to play the right way. To use that kind of cliche. So to me, the strides he's made over the last year, 18 months. To me, that really stands out. I mean, there was times a couple of years ago where, was he even a top 50 high school player? And now I think he's clearly a top 30, top 40, if not better. I just think that he works on his craft.
He should be a 5-star recruit.
Yeah, I agree.
He should be getting all the accolades. He should be invited to McDonald's.
If he keeps improving at the rate that he did in the last, like I said, 12 to 18 months, I do think that, like he's an NBA player, and I just, people people out there say, oh, if he wasn't LeBron's son, he'd be X, Y, and Z. No, he's on his own. He's a very, very good player.
And what an achievement for a guy like that, because
Yeah.
no one has ever stood in the shadow of the greatest player of all time. I mean, I can't imagine what Jordan's kids went through, but they faced that scrutiny pre-social media. But no one put him in this position where it was like, hey, maybe you'll be good enough to play with your dad at some point. I mean, both of those guys were in college when their dad had already retired. So it's such a unique situation for Bronny. I think the way he's handled it all has been commendable. Doesn't have his father's body, but if he gets his IQ, he might have a long career at the next level. For Jonathan Gavoni, for Jeff Borzello, I'm Myron Metcalf. Thank you for listening, watching, and remember, tell all your friends about this trio here.